You're tuned in to episode 40 of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast.
This is the Marketing Buzzword Podcast, the podcast where we dissect the world's most common marketing buzzwords. Hold on tight. We are about to fly around the beehive to see the latest buzzwords that stuck to the marketing bees.
Hello and welcome to the bite-sized section of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast and project, aptly named Bitesize Buzzword. I'm Ben Roberts, and in these bite-sized snackable episodes, I'm going to help you dive deeper into what a specific marketing buzzword actually means, help you decide whether it is or isn't important for your business, and if it is, how you can actually incorporate that buzzword into your marketing strategy. And just before I do that, I want to remind you, if you've been listening to any of the episodes so far, the crowdfunding campaign for my book is now live. Eek! Nearly, it's like 20 pre-orders already in one day, which is awesome. So if any of you would like to pre-order a book, please have a look at the link on the marketing, on this sort of the page on here, or just drop me a message and I will share a link with you. Have a look at me on social. I've been sharing it a few places, but please, if you're interested in the Marketing Buzzword book, please check it out. So in this episode, we're going to dive into the term and marketing buzzword data-driven marketing, and it's everyone talking about data. And in this episode, we're going to look at sort of the importance of data to big and small businesses, the misconceptions and errors around data and its use, what sorts of metrics you should be reporting on, and actually how you actually report and ultimately action and monitor those going forward. So let's start with the data, and it's important to SMEs and big businesses and small businesses. Now, the difference we have is a lot of smaller businesses tend to rely on their gut, which is nothing wrong with that, because your gut instinct says a lot. I mean, I know the amount of times that I've gone, I wish I'd listened to my gut. But the difference with this is you're not going against your gut against something that someone else has just told you. The data, raw data, is there to be able to help you make these decisions, and you should never be ignoring that data. However, your gut is powerful, and sometimes as a entrepreneur or business person, that's how you get ahead. You do something that you feel is right, and then then the data will come and back you up, because if you try to do everything that was after the fact, you're playing catch up all the time. Whereas actually, if you go with your gut, it's a way of you getting ahead of the curve. The problem with going with your gut is you have risk, and that increased risk may be acceptable to you. It may not be acceptable to you, but that's sort of the role that data plays. It gives you reduced amount of risk and helps you with those minor details that your gut probably just couldn't help with, or there is no justification for it. For example, changing the colour on your call to actions on your website. Now, data can tell you which colours are better. Your gut could give you guidance, but ultimately, because you are talking smallest of margins, the data will actually be able to uncover what is right and which has worked. And that data is used to then build insight. I mean, data on top of data gives you like an historical back view of how you performed and what's changed and where you're going as a company. Yes, your gut may be helping guide you somewhat, but if without that factual data, you're unsure of where you're actually heading, and it's applicable to small businesses more than any, because these are the ones that tend to use their gut more. And it literally gives you empirical facts. You can't argue with some of this stuff, where, for example, you use moz and you go and you look at your domain authority, you look at sort of the amount of issues on your website, you look at the number of redirects, you look at sort of how big your disavow file is. Little things like that. That is really important. It's something that often small businesses can ignore, but that can actually make the difference between two sales, which could be the difference between you making a loss and being in the red and being in the black. Now that's sort of the data uncovers this sort of stuff, and it's really easy if people say, I need to trust my gut. But ultimately, when you're operating in a business of fine margins, data can really be like your friend that you'd never think you'd actually have to rely on. And even small volume data is really important. I want to re-stress that small volume data is so powerful. Now, misconceptions and errors. Now, the big thing in the words I'm going to say is GDPR. Obviously, essentially, it's an extension of the data protection rules. I'm not going to go into sort of the ins and outs of GDPR. There are enough podcast episodes, there are enough blogs, there are enough talks out there about GDPR. The way that I view it from a marketing perspective is that actually it's not going to kill you. Yes, you may have your email list shrunk considerably. You may have issues in terms of the data you've collected. But I think actually, on a positive note, I think it will help streamline a lot of businesses. So where you were going from like 1.5% open rates, you'll be going to 10-15% open rates, because or even more than that, because you've culled a lot of people that just don't want to hear from you. So from that perspective, actually, it just makes your list a lot better quality. And we've been talking about this in marketing for a long time now, that it's not about the size of your list. It's about actually who you use it and the quality of your list. Size isn't always everything. And one of the other misconceptions / errors that people do is they collect way too much. Well, not collect way too much data. I think you can't collect too much data. I mean, I'm sure someone will disagree with me, but I mean, the amount of data I collect from my day job is pretty big. I've got a massive spreadsheet full of stuff that imports all that sorts of data, and it's really powerful stuff. It really is. But you can easily get blinded by it and looking at just making the data about the decisions and seeing so many numbers and seeing so much insight. Now, I'm going to talk about this in the metrics you should report section. I'm going to go into it a bit, but just really avoid paralysis by analysis. Avoid reporting on absolutely everything. Yes, monitor everything, but avoid reporting on everything and not making decisions because the data is slightly inconclusive. If the data is slightly inconclusive, then you need to sometimes just go with your gut, because that's how you get to make decisions. Don't let data stop you making decisions. Consistency over time. If you're a small, medium-sized business, the earlier you can start collecting data on your reporting, your marketing activities, your sales activities, the better, because then you have more evidence and more ideas going forward. Now, when I came into my current company, there was no real reporting on the marketing stuff. It's like, well, how are you supposed to know what's working, what's not working, how things are changing over time, what months are better than other months, because you haven't been reporting on it? That stuff is really, really important to a business, because you need to know what's going to sell better at a certain time, what wording works, what are people looking for, how are people finding us. It's so important data, and it's something especially small, medium-sized businesses, they're still not doing it enough. And also, the final thing, which I'm a little bit of a rant on this one, is engagement isn't a metric. People will say that they love engagement and engagement is important. I agree. If people don't engage with you, then you're probably not doing the right thing. However, it's not a metric. Be better. Be more specific. Find something that is tangible, i.e. something about detailed comments, so comments over maybe 5 words, for example. So instead of just saying, oh, awesome, yay, that's not really meaningful engagement. Think about maybe shares is still an important one. Think about sort of the number of inbound leads you get as a result of that traffic. You could have a look at the views and you can compare it to the amount of comments, likes, shares, and actually then that'll maybe give you an idea of certain types of comments that seem to be resonating more. But engagement itself isn't a metric, so don't go saying, oh, we need more engagement. No, you want maybe more views, and as a consequence, we want to actually increase the proportion of likes, comments, shares, whatever it is, as a proportion of the total awareness, the total sort of I lost my words. The total views of a post. That's more specific, and that is measurable. That is tangible. Now, which metrics should I report is another interesting thing. And obviously, I've spoken to a huge number of businesses over the years, and I've obviously worked in a range of different businesses, and they all sort of track a lot of different metrics. But actually, there's a huge number of ones that are generic, and I'm going to go through some of the stuff that just quickly that I report in my day job, which I've literally been going through. And this is why I decided to do this episode today, because I'm literally doing all the reporting on Talkative's activities at the moment. And some of the stuff that I'll report on is sort of the total inbound leads, total revenue, system utilization, so looking at actually how people are using our product. We look at sort of the monthly total traffic of the website. We look at the users, we look at the number of sessions, bounce rate, session durations. Now, what I'm going to stress is I'm going to read out a lot of this stuff, but I don't necessarily report on it all every month. Now, some of them I will report on 3 monthly. So, for example, bounce rate, I don't really report on unless something significant changes. Session duration, I don't report on unless it changes. Website users and sessions, yes, I do. I report on both of those, and I have a look at just making sure that the difference between the two is reasonably consistent. I absolutely look at the difference between like the organic, direct, referral, social traffic. You have to set up in Google Analytics, try and exclude certain domains because certain ones are seen as referrers and not organic searches. It's a little bit confusing. I'm not going to go into it in a huge amount of detail, but it's important that you understand where your traffic is coming from. We report through Ahrefs on sort of domain rating, referring domains, URLs. We look at on Moz as well. We do domain authority, page authority, linking domains, inbound links, follow links, ranking keywords, all that sort of stuff. That is really powerful for us, and I report on all that. We look at sort of Twitter, even on social media. It's nothing particularly exciting. But it's things like followers, tweets, profile visits, LinkedIn page follows. We look at Alexa rank, site speed, hugely important. Looking at your mobile and desktop site speed, because obviously Google's algorithm is mobile first. You need to be checking that your mobile speed is up there. And if you want any help in terms of choosing tools or how any of these work, please do drop me a message, ben@ben-m-roberts.com, and I'll be able to talk through it all. I monitor the number of on-site content posts, the number of guest posts that myself and my team have done, the amount of inbound links, total content pieces, variations in content. We're using Google Webmaster tools to look at things like URL errors, security issues, total index pages, links to site, structured data, HTML improvements. We go through our email subscriber list. So there's a huge amount of stuff there that I report on, and that's just sort of scratching the surface. I go into a lot more detail every 3 months. Essentially, the way it works is so how I report an action, and it's probably good to go into this section now, really. So I basically, at the moment, we're logging a lot of this still pretty much in Excel, and we just import all the data in. Now, I log loads of stuff, but I only really report on the important stuff, because again, I'm trying to avoid that paralysis by analysis. Google Analytics, Google Webmaster, the social media tools, Moz, Ahrefs, these are pretty much some of the primary tools that I use. And basically, the way to avoid paralysis by analysis is by bringing all this data in, but I only report on everything once every 3 months. So I do a deep dive every 3 months. So every sort of month I collate all the data. I just report on. I decide on what the essentials are. So I'm able to monitor anything else in case anything else happens. But ultimately, if nothing's really happening, I just report on every 3 months. That way, it's only 4 times a year there, and all the data is already there. So I'm not suddenly having to scrounge around and collect data that may or may not exist anymore. But instead, I'm actually able to build on what's already there, and it just means that every 3 months I'm just offering out a bit more data, and we can decide whether or not it is or isn't relevant going forward. But if I didn't collect that data, it wouldn't be possible. Thank you so much for listening today. Slightly bit of a sort of a different episode. I mean, this one's a little bit more from my experiences from things, so which is cool, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please do leave a review on iTunes, and also check out the main podcast with new guests every Monday. And before I do as well, please, if you haven't already, please do. Why are my words not coming out? If you do, please do pre-order a book from the new crowdfunding campaign on Publishizer. I'm going to put the link at the bottom of the show notes here, so you can have a look. And it's also just generally under the book tab on the marketingbuzzword.com website. Have a look at all the social media platforms. And also, just before I go, I need to let you know that this podcast is now part of the You Are the Media Network. So I'm going to leave you with a little drum roll at the end, and I'll see you on Monday for another guest post. Goodbye.
This podcast is part of the You Are the Media Network.